Welcome to the 20-Minute Talk Show. I'm really excited to introduce Miss Carol Weber. She is the Director for New Technologies for Gates Corporation. So we have 20 minutes. We'll speak with her, we'll learn more about her, and we're gonna ready and start now. So thank you very much for joining us in our show here. I'd like to know a little bit more about you and your travels. How did you end up with Gates?
This is a really good story. I started as a mechanical engineer. I worked in the space industry in some very exotic fluids, rocket fluids, cryogenic fluids. So it's not a natural change to move to Gates Corporation that makes hoses, we make belts. But the uniting theme is innovation. And in the space business, no one's ever done it. It's the first time, right? So innovation is this same way. No one's done it. How much can you risk? How much do you spend? So some people like me are just wired to take on the risk, but to be able to also focus it for success.
Wow. So how long have you been working in this field?
I worked for another company before Gates Corporation for about 2 years, and with Gates for about 3.5 years. Like I said before, that was aerospace. I did some consulting. But in the corporate field, instead of doing your own startup, this is paying you to be a startup within a corporation. So that can be a good model for success, intrapreneurship. You can have the corporate backing, you can have their funds, but there can be some limits as well.
Interesting. So what has inspired you, or what makes you so fascinated with what you're doing now? What's the passion that drives what you're doing now?
The bottom line by it is, I like to break the rules. If someone says this is the way we do it, this is what looks right, and this gets into kind of this piece about diversity inclusion. We expect someone that looks like this to behave like this. I like to break those rules. As the woman, the only woman in the room, maybe sometimes I'm not a part of the conversation, but I kind of like that, to push the conversation in a different way.
Wow. So then how do you feel about being a leader and a woman in Gates Corporation? How have you overcome challenges that you've faced?
I guess, first of all, I would think that people just look at me and go, she's a good engineer, she's a good leader, not so much she's a woman and I think that's what I'm seeing now, kind of a twist that I haven't seen in a long time. We've got a generation of engineers and scientists that are a little more timid than some of us were in the past. And I think if we can, push them past some of their barriers, look beyond the surface, look again to better ideas come from diversity and inclusion. And that comes from all kinds of diversity. Even when the innovation days at DU, you've involved business students, finance students, engineers. So with different disciplines, plus then you can go into some of the other gender and cultural diversity, you end up with better ideas. And for me, that's easy to open that up and engage, start that conversation.
Wow. So you've seen a lot of changes then over the years, like you said, through within diversity and inclusion, men and women. What do you think has been one of the biggest impacts that have, caused change and made changes in your life?
It's just as soon as somebody breaks through. Let's go back to the space program for a second. Sally Ride. When Sally Ride became an astronaut, the rest of us looked at it and went, boy, that's possible. Why don't I try too? You know, when a woman athlete succeeds, you say, that's possible. Why don't I try too? So, and I think we can all look at that. When we see someone like us succeeding, it inspires us and it looks a little more possible.
So speaking of inspiration, tell me some of your role models. Who are some of your role models?
Yeah, I mentioned Sally Ride. I liked her. I mean, I've always been fascinated about the space program, passionate about it. She had the right passion and intellectual curiosity to go after her goals. And for her, it wasn't about her gender. She just wanted to serve and use her talents. It's an inspiration to me because that's really what I really want to do is how can I serve and how can I use my talents?
Wow. What has been one of your most satisfying moments?
I've started mentoring young engineers now, and at first it was very challenging because I thought, they're smarter than me, they're faster than me, what could I possibly offer them? And I'm really proud of the exchange. I'm learning, I'm sharing wisdom, I'm helping direct. But again, I think they're sharing as much with me. So I'm kind of proud of how that's growing, especially with my company now as it's going through a lot of changes.
Wow. So how long have you been mentoring this student or students?
Just going on 2 years, and I just happened to pick up a couple other people along the way. So just about 2 years with Gates as a formal mentorship.
I'm sure you'll make a big difference in their lives. You're a great role model for them. I have no doubt that you will be.
You're very kind, thank you.
Absolutely. Do you mind telling me a little bit more about what you do at Gates Corporation, some of your responsibilities and roles?
Sure. So Gates Corporation is an international company, and we make power transmission and fluid power products. And what those really are rubber hoses that might, go in your car, rubber belts for your automotive, your engine, but then also oil and gas products. And as we know, oil and gas, there's a high risk of that hose not operating. I mean, there's a high impact if the hose doesn't operate, right? So these are highly engineered products, and we're very good at it. Gates Corporation has been around for more than 100 years. We make quality parts, but the world has changed. The world has changed in how fast, how deep we want to drill. Automotive engines are much, much different. So my team is about breaking the rules. We've always done it like this. We always make a good product like that. My team says, what if we could change this product? And I'm being a little vague because it's all pre-patent protected. What if we could change this rule and make a product that was more powerful, smaller, cheaper, stronger? I mean, that's what my team does all the time. And it's very risky because we don't always succeed. But it's the part to try. I mean, it's the passion to try, the interest to try something new.
Right, that is really exciting to try new things. It gives you more motivation. Mm-hmm. And speaking of team, I want to talk about that. How do you build your relationship with your team members? How do you lead to make sure that everyone in your team is on the same page?
Innovation can look kind of chaotic. So you could have a lot of very creative, free people that want to go off and do their own thing. And it's a balance of, right, letting them be creative enough, but staying within corporate America that wants you to deliver something that they can sell, right? So I think it's an individual decision. We have a lot of very different people on that team. Some that are very optimistic. I always like somebody that's a little more pragmatic because they keep the optimists in check. And we have a schedule of things. We have a scope to deliver. We report out and communicate. But we also have a lot of fun. Last time at holiday season, we did something ridiculous. We got gag gifts and wrapped them up and took turns swapping them out. And we even had to do some of it via video. And it was just fun. Just have some fun and not take it all too so seriously.
Wow, it sounds like it would be fun, but also could be overwhelming too. Try to keep following up with new things and changes every day.
Yeah, I think you have to be wired for it. Some people like the operation world where you go into a manufacturing plant and you make a quality product every day because they know that they're on track. And some of us are just wired differently. I want to see what happens when. I want to try this and let's see. But then also have a vision of what success might look like. And I think it takes both sides, innovation world and operations world, to run a good company.
Wow, that's really exciting. So what do you foresee coming in the next 10 years with your industry?
This is all the secret part that we can't talk about. I think it's an industry made of elastomers and rubber that hasn't focused nearly enough on recyclables or green technologies. And I think there's going to be a drive for that because there's an internal desire for it. But I think also regulation is going to push that way. There's always more regulation for cleaner technologies, and we're going to move that way as well.
Wonderful, wonderful, right. Do you feel in the future that technology will afford these changes? I mean, maybe Google has already tried to develop a car that drives without a driver and makes those changes. So do you feel like there's a lot of those changes coming soon, or do you feel like that's going to take a lot more research and development and innovation, or what challenges maybe that it would be to get a product like that?
That's a really good question. There's a couple of ways that we're looking at that now. Is yes, the new technology and the new materials, but it's also in how we're approaching the problem. Again, that old saying, if you just do the same thing you've always done, you're going to end up where you've always been, right? So just this last year, my team, we approached the problem very differently. And we adopted a agile sprint methodology right out of Silicon Valley, right? Agile sprint, the Scrum methodology. For a dumb rubber company to take on a sprint was a huge step in how we innovate. And it was difficult at first, and we've got better over the last year. And I got to tell you, we've done some amazing things this year by just taking on a new method on how to innovate.
Okay, so far, I guess in everything that you've invested, what's been something that's been the most successful in one of your ventures?
The most successful, and my measure of success might be different than the CEO's, so you have to forgive me on that one. I think I'm quite proud of something I did a very long time ago for the space program. After the Challenger explosion, very significant impact to the U.S. space program, we stopped launching. And there was a lot of shortcuts taken in safety that were discovered when a commission investigated that incident. Out of that was a requirement to change the respirators for the firefighters that rescued the astronauts. And it doesn't seem very interesting and exciting because it's not launching something, but these firefighters were given compressed air bottles and needed to travel from their safety tank up to what could have been a very hazardous fire and extract astronauts and save them. The flaw was there wasn't enough air to extract 7 people from the shuttle. There wasn't, if you scuba dive, you understand that you need that certain amount of time, you need a certain size of your tank, right? There was only enough for 3 astronauts, and that was based on the Apollo program, which was a long time ago. So this is so why not just get a bigger tank for these firefighters? Because it doesn't fit inside the small shuttle hatch. Right, so this is impossible, right? What do we do? You can't get a bigger compressed air tank. You need more air. So my team solved the impossible, and we did it with something that people at Kennedy Space Center were very good at, and that's dealing with liquefied air. And without getting too boring and into the engineering part of it, liquefied air can expand more than 300 times the volume when it becomes a gas. So my team took this small thermos called a dewar that holds liquid air, qualified it to use for these firefighters, and supplied them with enough air to rescue all of the astronauts. And I think I'm most proud of it because it was open collaboration. It was the technician in the shop that really had great ideas, and we listened to him. He wasn't an engineer, but he had fantastic ideas. We had to talk to NASA. We had to talk to the Air Force. We had to talk to the astronauts and the firefighters. So it was very open, it was very challenging, and out of that came something that used from that recovery, back to launch, all the way through the end of the shuttle program. So it wasn't worth any money. It's not something we sold and made money, but that's the kind of inspiration when people decide, I can do something differently and make a difference, make an impact.
Yeah, that's right. Wow, that's a great story. It seems like you've had a lot of success, and that's very inspiring. I think what I like the most is how you feel you've made an impact on society, and that's what you value the most. Speaking of green products that you mentioned earlier, how do you think that will affect change, or even related to global warming, or what improvements will be made to help the environment and our world as we know it?
There's such a large group of people interested in green products and how we use less, recycle more. I think I'm not sure I have a good pulse on this, but I think I see this as unstoppable, because there's a different way to make a product is one thing, but maybe we don't need a product. Maybe you do less. I'm also seeing this in the energy field. I think energy is going to be a big space for innovation, not necessarily renewable energy as we know it now, but energy efficiencies that aren't even realized yet. I think that's a great space for some change.
Right. I think it would be a great way. Hopefully, that'll be coming because we care about, the environment so much. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
Also, I was wondering if you had to change your career, what would you do differently? What else would you have done?
This is a tough question. As passionate as I am about the space program, I'm asking myself, would I have stayed? Because I left at a time when it wasn't growing and it wasn't as exciting. And it's easy to say that because it sounds so glamorous and huge. But then I would have not have traveled internationally. I wouldn't have learned the things that I know now. So it's too easy to look back and say I'd change something. I don't think I would change anything. Maybe enjoy it more and not be so stressed that I was going to succeed, that things are just fine, I guess.
Well, I'm happy that you stuck with your passion, you continued to follow that, and how you stayed motivated and focused, every day on what you love.
Thank you, Brian.
Absolutely. I was also wondering, to stay motivated, what continues to inspire you?
Well, I have a daughter I need to put through college, so I keep working hard. Yeah. Back to this mentorship, I see these young engineers as they're trying to find their foothold in the company, and I can give them that same piece that counseling I just gave myself of, follow your passions, don't worry about failure. Failure leads to some other success later. Don't be so worried. It's all going to work out fine. But really follow your passions. If you make yourself do a job, just for the money or just because it looks good, you won't be happy at the end of the day.
Right, that is very true. Okay, so we got about 35 seconds left. So what would your advice be for all women who are trying to be leaders?
You know, I would say get a mentor. I didn't have that when I was starting my career, and what they do is they all open some doors that you may not be able to. I think that by connecting, maybe more than one mentor, and someone that'll challenge you, not make it so easy for you.
Oh, that is right. Right. Well, thank you very much for coming. It's really inspiring to speak with you, so really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Oh, perfect
That's it.
timing. That was so good.